Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, we have finally reached October, and you know what that means. I get to go horror movie crazy. That's right, an entire month full of scary movie recommendations. Now, I know not everybody out there thinks of themselves as a scary film fan, but let me tell you, this genre is so broad that there really is a movie for everyone. And that's mainly because there's so many incredibly niche subgenres out there. It does not matter if you are more of a comedy fan, more of a period piece fan, a dark fantasy fan, there's a scary movie out there for you. And today we are actually going to focus on my personal favorite subgenre, which is the incredibly niche sentient plant subgenre. So when we're talking about sentient plant movies, we're talking about films featuring plants that are capable of some sort of malice or active action. We're not talking about your standard daisy here. And I have been a fan of this genre since I was very, very, very young. And to be honest, I'm actually more of a fan of sentient plant books, even because I do think there's some absolutely phenomenal books out there with this particular topic, but there are also a number of really good movies, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So, as always, all of today's recommendations are available entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card, and those are going to be available via either our DVD and Blu-ray service on CleveNet or via our digital platforms, Hoopla and Canopy. So without any further ado, let's get to some scary plant movies. Okay, I want to kick things off with a DVD or Blu-ray available on our CleveNet service, and that is 1986's Little Shop of Horrors. This is the movie that started it all for me. My fascination with sentient plant films came from this one movie, and I couldn't have been more than 5 when I first saw it, and yet it still absolutely grabbed my attention for a lot of reasons, I think. So Little Shop of Horrors is a horror comedy musical film adaptation of Roger Corman's super campy The Little Shop of Horrors from the 1960s. Also definitely worth a watch and available on DVD, Blu-ray, as well as digital streaming. But yeah, while I enjoy the original super campy film, I absolutely adore this musical adaptation. And there's just something fascinating to me about the fact that so many genres can be smashed together and still make a really coherent and frankly phenomenal movie. So Little Shop of Horrors sort of follows this very quiet, nebbishy shop assistant played by the incomparable Rick Moranis, who also happens to be an excellent singer. He just can't seem to catch a break. He has a dead-end job at this little florist shop. He happens to be madly in love with his coworker, Audrey, played by Ellen Green. And, you know, his life is just really going nowhere. There's an entire song dedicated to the area in which he lives. And, you know, for that kind of a character, you know, that sort of back with that sort of like going nowhere background, that sort of really illustrates why everything that happens afterward just snowballs so quickly. At a certain point, he discovers this very unusual plant. And in all honesty, it looks like it's just some sort of odd Venus flytrap variant, right? But time goes by and the plant really starts to grow. But the thing is, the only thing that makes it grow is human flesh and blood. We learn this originally when there's a small accident. He cuts his finger, and Audrey 2, the name of this little Venus flytrap variant, seems to be interested in eating the blood. So things really snowball from there. And while the storyline itself is actually quite fun to follow and it's really exciting, like a lot of times horror films just, they do focus on like super scary moments, and that's, I mean, for a lot of people, the point. But I love that this film is sort of a blend of like gore, but also comedy and then music. Like the songs are really good. And the songs are written by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, names that you absolutely know if you grew up in the 80s for their Disney musicals. I mean, these are the guys that did Little Mermaid, Aladdin. I mean, everything is super catchy and the cast is just incredible. If you follow musical theater at all, there are a lot of people in this cast that have uh, backgrounds within musical theater. You also have a lot of stunt casting with actors who can really sing. Steve Martin here plays a sadistic dentist. One of my favorite of his roles, and I'm a massive, massive Steve Martin fan. You have a crazy number of cameos. It's just so well done, and the cast is just incredible. And it's just really fun. It's a fun horror film. Like the fact that at a certain point we get a singing sentient plant is pretty awesome. A singing sentient plant voiced by one of the former Temptations. So you know that the plant is incredible. And the kind of music that sort of floods this film is just, it's just so fun. It just like it's hard for me to describe it as anything outside of that. Like it's just one of the most fun experiences I've ever had watching a film. And the first time I watched it was nearly 40 years ago. I still love this movie. I watch it frequently. There's rarely a year that goes by that where I don't watch it at least once, even if it's just to like, scan through the music or to scan through certain scenes. Like it's just it's just that great and fun of a movie. So, if you are looking for something that is a combination of many, many genres, if maybe you are not more of a traditional horror film fan, but you are looking for something that has those kind of scary-ish elements, if you love great music, if you like, you know, Broadway plays, if you happen to just want something a little bit off the beaten path that's going to be incredibly entertaining for an hour and a half, make sure you check out Little Shop of Horrors. It is a fantastic, fantastic film and a total must watch. Okay, so my next recommendation is going to be a super quick one. It is available on Hoopla, and that is 2008's The Ruins. Why is this going to be a super quick rec? Because it's less of a rec of the film and more of a recommendation for the book. So the film version, which again was made in 2008, is an adaptation of a book written in 2006 with the same title by Scott Smith. Scott Smith also wrote the film, and I have to say that the film is okay. It is not a phenomenal film, but if you happen to be like a big fan of blood, guts, and gore, this is a really great view for you. It's definitely incredibly violent. It is very visually intense, but the book is so incredible, atmospheric. It has the blood, guts, and gore too, but it just has a storyline that I do think is a little bit more cohesive. Anyway, so basic storyline of the film: we are following two young couples as they are holidaying in Mexico. They end up at this archaeological dig in the middle of the jungle, and that is where they have their first encounter with a group of carnivorous vines. That's right, vines that eat people. Vines that eat anything really, but vines that especially enjoy eating people. Uh, the entire idea behind that is absolutely terrifying. I always find movies where people go off on vacations and meet doom and destruction instead to be absolutely fascinating, and this story is no different. You go out expecting fun, sun, excitement, and you get, well, maybe excitement, but a whole lot of awful things too, and a whole lot of not fun. And this movie is one of those that sort of really leans into that concept. You have fairly decent acting in the movie. Jenna Malone leads the cast. She plays a woman named Amy. She's always very, very competent if you happen to follow Malone's career. She's been in a number of movies. I think her biggest role recently was in the Hunger Games series. And, she, I think, is really what holds the cast together in this. You do get a great deal of dread while you're watching the movie and a whole lot of, again, blood and guts. But I definitely would say if you are looking for a story that sort of really goes there with the dark, really violent sort of sentient plant life, make sure you check out the book. The book is actually incredible. I do think it's one of my favorite horror books that I've read in the last handful of years, and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading. I just flew my way through that. So I think maybe if I had not read the book first, I would have liked the film a little bit more, though I will say I am less of a blood, guts, and gore fan than a lot of other horror film aficionados. So take that as you will. Again, like I said, super short recommendation, The Ruins, 100% check out the book. If you happen to be looking for really violent sentient plants, then definitely check out the movie as well. Okay, next recommendation is available to stream via our Canopy service, and that is 2019's Little Joe. I am so happy that I found this movie. It hadn't been anywhere on my radar before I started working on today's list, and it is probably my favorite film from all of the new films that I watched. Little Joe follows a uh, single mother who happens to be a really dedicated, intelligent plant breeder. She works for this corporation that's currently developing a new species of plant that will, if cared for and loved, make its owner happy. It gives off these chemical signals that alters elements of its owner. Nothing could go wrong there, clearly. Uh, the plant is really quite a lovely little thing that it looks a bit like a dandelion that's red and pink instead of yellow and then white. But it seems quite innocuous, just like a pretty houseplant. It's not. It's not at all. Not even a little bit. So the vast majority of this film, you get this creeping sense of dread. I mean, really so well done. Like the atmospheric value of this is insane. And the actors clearly like really dig in to that element of dread. Alice is played by Emily Beecham, and she does a very, very solid job at the role. But it's Ben Whishaw who plays this character who I think embodies that sort of creeping dread vibe. There's just something off. And as you see his character unfold, you know, you find yourself leaning into the screen. What's going to happen? When are we going to get this payoff of whatever it is? We just know that it's coming. And when you combine there's something visually stunning about this movie too. There's almost an overexposed element to the way it's filmed. So everything looks a little bit almost like you're looking through a couple of different lenses of like microscopes or whatnot. Everything seems a little too saturated. I guess that's probably the best word for it. And there's something just a little off kilter. That sense that something's just a little off. And the further we get in the film, the more the way the movie is filmed leans into that idea that we are seeing this change, this shift, the way that these plants are affecting the people that are caring for them. And it's just so good. I I found it like delightfully disturbing while I watched it, because again, the shifts are subtle. You don't get like a slate clap and then everything's different. No, like it's again that sort of creeping malevolence, that just carries you through the whole film. And as you see that sort of wash over absolutely everything from the color of the movie to the performances of the actors to just every subtle shift is there, but it's subtle. So, it just sort of before you know what's happening, it's happened. So if you like movies that do move in that way, so sort of everything is like a slow swell on an ocean, Little Joe just kind of embodies all of those elements, those slight shifts as you follow along, and it's really engrossing too. Like you get absolutely caught up, both because of the performances and the production of the movie itself. It just all comes together in a way that absolutely grabs you and won't let you go. Like it's one of those movies that I thought about quite a lot after I finished it, almost more so. It was almost more disturbing after the last scene, because I definitely felt, what did I just watch? And I wanted to go back immediately and see if I caught more of those subtle shifts earlier on, if it would have changed the movie for me. So yeah, if you are someone who enjoys that sort of slow creeping dread, you love really well thought out production value, and man, they really thought these things out. Definitely check out Little Joe. Very small, quiet film that will absolutely keep your attention and that will totally suck you into this very, like, disarming, dreadful world. Okay, a final recommendation for this week. This one is available on Hoopla, and that is 2018's Annihilation. This one is one of those movies that stuck with me long after I watched it. It is a science fiction psychological horror, written and directed by Alex Garland and based on a novel of the same name by Jeff Vandermeer. Uh, Annihilation stars Natalie Portman, a whole host of other really phenomenal actors like Jennifer Jason Leigh, Oscar Isaac, Gina Rodriguez, and it follows this group of explorers who enter this quarantined zone called the Shimmer, or Area X. And this quarantine zone is full of mutant plants and animals that are all caused by an alien presence. Um, Throughout their adventure in this quarantine zone, we don't know what's real. They don't know what's real. And the zone causes them to have several breaks with reality. And every time we encounter one of those moments, it feels a bit like you're in a fever dream. You don't know if what you're seeing on screen is an actual situation or it's just in one of the characters' heads, and it just plays with you, and it's so well done. Like, a lot of times you can sort of guess, this isn't really happening, or this is just a flashback, or this is just, a hallucination. It's really not like that. The entire time you're watching, you're like, what is real? And it's both engrossing, enjoyable, and off-putting at the same time, because it's so very well done. Some of the themes that it explores, like, really are sort of expansions on things that we think about in general. What is love? How can you identify what would you go through in order to save somebody? At things that you see in so many different films that have nothing to do with this particular subgenre, except all of those elements are heightened because of this particular theme. Natalie Portman does an exceptional job in this. It's a character that I think is quite hard to play because of her personality and because of the things that she's going through. And you never get a real grasp on her, but that's kind of the point. You don't, the story doesn't want you to know her the way that you oftentimes will want to know a main character. You want to peel back the layers. You want to get all of these, you want to get the backstory so you understand how she gets to where the point she is. And while you do get some of those elements, you also are left with this shroud of mystery around her, because the entire story is a bit of that feeling, that sort of mysterious, nebulous reality versus fantasy realm. And her interactions with the rest of the cast are so strong. Like, you feel all of the little interactions, everything feels really organic. There's nothing that feels out of place. And I do feel like a lot of times in horror films, you do get acting that doesn't focus on elements like that, where the bonds aren't really super important, where playing off of one another isn't the end game. It's really about, like, the big scares, the jump scares, all of these other things. But when you do have acting that plays off of one another so well, that's when you get something like this. If you are looking for a movie that does leave you guessing and leave you wondering what you're seeing is actually happening, this is one of the best for that. I mean, seriously, very much a film that will make you want to go back as soon as you finish watching it to see if you caught certain things, if you really understand all of the different scenes, all of the different highs and lows, if you understand the ending. This is the kind of horror film that I really like, the ones that stick with you, the ones that make you think, the ones that make you want an immediate rewatch. So again, Annihilation 2018, really exciting, a fun watch, but definitely a trippy one at the same time, which is kind of the best at the same in the same realm. So again, Annihilation 2018, must watch. Okay, so those were my recommendations for Scary Plant Movie Week. If you have any recommendations for terrifying plant films, please put those below in the comments. If you have any recommendations for future themes that you'd like to see us explore, definitely put those there as well. As always, I love putting these recommendation lists together. It's so much fun to sort of delve into the catalog that we have to offer. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye-bye.